Welcome to another video. I'm Toby at DR Games and Dark Realm Maps, and today I want to show you a new game that I have just released. It's free, it's a print and play, roll and write one-player game where you are in charge of an army trying to drive out a dark force from your land that has come and claimed a series of forts that spread out across the map. Now, this is something you can download and play at home. You don't need to buy anything, and I kind of came across this idea because I wanted to give something back to the community and put something out there for people to play. And I've been working with hexes, and I thought, how can I work this hex and add numbers to it and come up with a mechanism? And I kind of had this concept, and then I played it, and it's worked very nicely. So as you can see, ordinarily you would write. You'd have a pencil and a dice, you have the map and you have the rules, and that's all you need, and you write it, and it's a very fluid process. Now I'd love to be able to film that so that you could watch me do that, but unfortunately it's quite fiddly in the sense that the numbers are quite small and the camera struggles to focus on the detail. So what I thought I'd do is set up a digital version, and I have created, put the map here, and we've got assets that I can dump onto the map as we roll the dice. And the dice that we're going to be using is this particular one here, you can see, and it gives you the roll. And then we can add the numbers to the map as we go along, and I can explain the rules as we go. So, let's just jump in. Let's have a look at the first game. So the aim of the game is to capture back 4 of the 7 forts that are on the map, and they're spread out across this mountainous region. Now we're in the Billiton region, and there are 4 others in this particular mountainous region that you can play on, and they're accessible. You can download them from the link below in the description. And so the starting spot is this star area here, and it's quite simple. All we're going to do, and it may be slightly fiddly, but not any more fiddly than having to write the numbers on necessarily. We're going to roll the die and see where it leads us, and I'll explain the rules as we go. First thing we do is we write the numbers in the starting spot. Now those numbers go onto the grid here, and you can see 1, 2, 3. Numbers are written clockwise, and in the very first square you start with the 1 at the top like that, and it goes 1, 2, 3 all the way around like so. And then we're going to roll the die, and that gives us a 4. So if we look at the grid, we've got 4 at the bottom. So we're going to follow the 4 into the next hex grid, like so. And then, because we've got 2 4s together over this side, we're going to add in one of our armies. And that goes over the 4s. And that signifies that our army, that is our army, that circle there. Now the Dark Force armies could appear at any moment. We roll a 2. If we look at the image here, the 2's down to the left, so we need to get a 2. And again, we have 2 matching, the 2's there. That means we can place another one of our armies down there. Now we want to try and head towards the forts, obviously, but we're kind of controlled by the randomness of the dice. Goes on the 2's, so you know, you'd be drawing this and you'd just circle those 2's when you had it on a piece of paper. Right, the next one, let's try and see what happens. I'm going to roll from this hex. Now you can roll from any hex as you have a go. So as you're playing, you could pick any hex and roll from. You go back to the first hex and roll from that if you want to, or you could roll from that previous one. But there are risks. If you have your armies on there, there's always a chance that they may be tracked, and if you roll those numbers again, then you're going to get a tile blocked, and we'll deal with that when that actually happens. So we're rolling from this particular hex here. We roll a 3, which takes us back along this route. The army trail has led through to this tile here, which brings us closer to reclaiming this fort back. Alright, so we have a situation now where the army's moved down through the 4, then the 2, then the 3. And now we've got a hex which is next to a previously drawn hex. So the 4 is next to the 1. Now if we rolled the 4, there wouldn't be a match. It would mean that you come up against this 1, and that's kind of like a jolt in the force, if you like. And what that means is you'll get a dark army appear here. Your army has been tracked on this course, and you put a dark army in there. Now if we roll to 3, you're going to have to block a square, and blocked squares you cannot access. They are zones that have been fortified by the dark force, and they're just too difficult to get into. We rolled a 1, and so that takes us south. And that is now one of your armies. The trail of the army has gone this way. So I'm going to roll from this bottom hex. So 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6, and it takes my armies around here. Hopefully we get a 2 and it takes us towards the fort. That's the hope. Get a 3 and we head down to this route here. The 3s. So it's come all the way down here. If we go out a little bit, you can see that we're going down the centre here. The mountain's over to the left, the fort this way. If we made a pathway down here, that would lead us down to that fort, which would be quite handy. Now, I could go to a tile like this and roll, but the chances are slim for me to actually try and hit a 5 or 6, but it would take me closer to this 4. I want to try the lower risk tiles in the first place and get to these higher risk tiles later on. 5, and we get a 5. So let's put the numbers on there. So the army's making good progress through to this fort. Now, I'm going to roll from this one. A 1 will help us claim the fort. All you have to do to claim a fort back is to put an army onto it. Even if a dark force comes in, you still retain that fort. So let's roll again here. So rolling for this particular tile here, you get a 2, which takes us up next to it. Goes on the 2. So we're going to roll again from this next one and follow the line. Army's on the march. Going to try and... So we did 3 to take the fort. So we roll a 2 again. That is probably the worst result we can actually get. Now, the reason is, in this game, your army is always under pressure. And if you roll a 2, it shows that your army has been detected and the barricades go up on the next tile. So because everything goes clockwise around, you have to take your 2 to the next available hex, which on this occasion is the fort, which is really bad news. We've lost that fort. It goes on there like that. The 2, as you can see, is put on the next available side around. And sadly, that is now blocked. They've rallied their forces and blocked that area of land, and it will not be accessible at all now in the rest of the game. So, we've got to consider, do we want to try and head down to this fort down here? I think we will give that a go. So I'm going to go back to this hex here. We've got 4, the 5 and the 3s. We've got the armies. Now if we roll 5 and a 3, it will block the tile on the clockwise direction. So we've got to hope for a 6, 1 or 2 to move down in this direction, which is better odds than trying on this next hex up. So we want to try with this one here. Right, so we need to roll the die. 6, 1 or 2 would be good. And we get a 6. So now we've got more sides open, which gives you better odds on expanding down into this direction here. So rolling from this hex. And we'll roll the die. What do we get? We get a 5, which takes us back slightly. Now, I'm going to follow this one again. This new one we've gone into, this hex here. And roll the die. 6, which actually takes us in the direction that we want to go. So the army's come down this way and sort of zigzagged down. And we are getting close to this fort down here, which we need to retake. So we're in this hex here. A 2, 3, 4, 5 is good. Let's see what we get. We get a 4, which is great. We're going to roll from this one here. 5, 6, 1, around those numbers, and then we should be fine. 3. Okay, that isn't what we wanted. That takes us round to the side up there. 3s on the 3s there. Roll the 3. But now an interesting thing has happened with this one. We've got 1 and 1s matching up here. So that means that parts of other armies have come in and joined in. So we need to put down another army there. But it also increases the risks of rolling from that spot again. If you're on a 1 or a 3, you can block a tile. This tile down here. I don't really want to do that at the moment. We're going to go from this one. Again, there's still risk with this one. If you're on a 3 or a 4, you're going to block a tile. You don't want to do that. So let's have a roll. So we're rolling from this one here. And we get a 4, which is not what we wanted. So the 4 carries around to this side, and this tile here becomes blocked. So let's put the blocked tile. We still have to put the numbers in as well. So just to recap on that, you can't place anything on the 4 because there's already a 4 there, and we've already got an army there. So it moves around clockwise to the next hex and the next edge, and that 4 is what we rolled. It's what you start with. So you start writing 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3 around that clockwise, and then it goes into this tile, and this tile is blocked. And you can see now we can't go into that hex now. Now rolling on this hex to go south is now even more dangerous. So if I roll a 5, a dark army will appear here. Either 6, 1 or 2 to go downwards towards the fort. I run the risk of blocking off this area completely, which means that we won't be able to claim that fort. So we're going to roll from this tile here, and we need a 6, 1 or 2. We got a 1. That's good. Okay, so we've got the 1s. The army has pushed on past this fortified hex you cannot get into, and we're closer now to the fort. So we're rolling on this one here. 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6. Now we've got a mountain next to us. Mountains are dangerous. If we're on a 5, our troops have been pushed into the mountains and are lost, and this tile that we're on is blocked off. So we don't want to roll a 5. We don't want a 1. So mountains are very risky terrain if your army gets detoured into them. If we roll a 1, we're going to block this tile as well. So there are risks involved with this particular move. But we need to push down to the fort. Right, here we go. 1 is a bad roll, because that shows that our army has been tracked and they've fortified this hex next to it. So 1 cannot be drawn in. We move it around 1 as we were describing before. So placing the hex on that space there like that. And that hex is now out of bounds. So we have 2 areas which the dark forces have fortified and stopped us from moving into. And we're still in this hex down here. We're going to use this hex again. Now it's much more risky to roll on this hex. Chances are slimmer. And especially with the mountains there as well. So let's have a go at that. 3. We're lucky. We get a 3. And it means that we can move into this hex just north of the fort. Put the army on the 3s. Right, so we're into this hex here. 6. 4's bad, 3's bad. We need a 1 to claim the fort. Can we claim the fort? Let's try it. 1 claims the fort. 2. That's not so bad. It takes us out to this zone here. So we've placed the army in, and it's zigzagged through, deflected to the west of the fort a bit. Let's use this one here and see if we can grab the fort. We need 3 to do that. It's next to 3 is next to the fort. And we claim the fort. So that is one of our forts. Let's just put that in there. That is a victory point. So we need 4 of these forts. So put the army in. You can see that connects to the fort hex. All right, no matter what happens now, that is your point. You've claimed that. Even if for some reason you end up back down here and there's the dark army came in here. We haven't seen any dark armies yet, but we will. Or for some reason it gets blocked, you still claim that. That is your point. So we've maneuvered down the map into that location, and we're not going to go any further. We're going to leave that there. That is now our land. We've lost this fort up here. Incidentally, we can colour these in. Kind of gives you more of an idea of which ones we've lost. Right, so we want to try for these forts up here. These ones are open. Now you can see we've got a hex here, this one here. Now that potentially has got 4, 5 or 6 that will spread us out in this direction. Or we could start from the initial hex where we rolled a 4 from, which I think we'll do. We'll start from the starting point again and see if we can get across, or even further up, or in fact any of these directions would be good to take us in towards these other forts, so we can try and claim back from the dark force. So roll the die. What do we get? 5. So we put the 5s on, and that's that direction. I don't want to go in that direction quite yet. I'm going to take a bit of a risk. In fact, on that one we just placed, we've got 2 1s together. So we need to put those, we need to highlight, put an army on those. So put that one in there like that. Okay, so I'm going to go from the start tile again and see whether we get any luck. We need a 1, 2, 3 or 6. A 1 is fine, so let's put that in. So we put an army around the 1s, and we put the numbers in, and we're going to roll from this new hex that we've just rolled up. It gives us a 2, which again takes us in that direction. So progress is slow. We're having to double back on ourselves a little bit here. By placing that 2 in there, we've got a 4s and 2s matching. I'm going to go from this top hex again and roll a 4, and that takes us north. So that's what we want. Draw in the army. We're heading north towards these forts here. Okay, we're going to roll again from that new hex that we just did then. 5. Again, that takes us back on ourselves. Going to roll from this top hex again. We get 3. Okay, that takes us in a slightly different direction. So if we got a 2 here, the dark army would come out. We are going to roll from this one. And 2. So this is the first occasion when we've had a number rolled that is opposite a different number, next to a different number. So the 2 is next to the 5. You can see here. 2 is next to 5. That means we can't place a 2 here. And it's not one of our armies. So this is the emergence of our first dark army. And we'll put that in here. Now, these appear more as the game goes on. And you can see we'll put it there. It's got a blocked in rectangle, so we can distinguish it. If 25 armies appear, and although it may not seem like they will at this point, then you lose the game. So that's the limit. 25 dark armies, and you've been overwhelmed in the land. Right, we're going to roll again from this hex. So we want a 4 or 5 or 6 or 1. And we rolled a 2. So we rolled a 2 again, which isn't good news. So what happens is this dark army has actually taken on your own army and takes this army down. So what we're going to do is place one of the armies over it. It signifies that your army lost the battle. When you're drawing this, you just simply colour it in. We're going to put it like that for the moment. So that signifies there are now 2 dark armies on this space. Your army can still move out from this area because it's not blocked. But if you roll 2 or 3 now, because there's none of your armies to take, it will block the next hex and a dark army will appear. So we mustn't roll 2 or 3. That will be damaging. 5. Okay. Your army has managed to escape and it moves into this next hex, which is exactly what we wanted because that takes us towards these forts. So I've placed the army on there. It's the survivors of these 2 battles here, and they've pushed forward, regrouped, and now they're into this new hex, and we're going to roll for this one here. Better odds on this one. So roll a 2, and that takes us in that direction. So I've placed the army and the numbers, and we're going to roll from this one. Let's see what we get. 5 takes us. We're forging a path forward. People, villagers are joining the forces as well. So that's how we can kind of retain the strength of the army. This is our own land that has been defeated. Let's not forget. So we've placed the numbers and placed the circle around the 5. Let's see what we roll now. Rolling from this top hex. 3. That takes us towards the boundary, the edge of the map. If you roll off the edge, then like the mountains, the hex becomes blocked because the army has been lost. So let's put that in. There we go. 3s are circled because that's the army, the number we rolled. Let's try and roll from this hex here. It's a bit risky. 4 goes north, 5 and 6, this gets blocked off because of the lost in these regions over here. 2 and 1 takes us down south, which is where we want to be. All of these numbers here have got, there's 2 of them that are going to push us towards the fort. Let's try and roll. So from this fort, this one here, 2 or 1 will do it. 2, and we get a 2. Okay, good. 2s are highlighted. So we're going to roll from this hex. In fact, we need to put in another army here because the 6s match up when we place that new hex. Like so. That increases the risks of our army being found. So we need a 4 to claim this fort. If we get a 1, a dark army will appear, and then it increases the chances of their our army is losing to the dark army that's appeared, but also blocking these hexes. If we roll 2 or 6, we're going to block a hex. Let's see what happens. So this hex here is what we're doing. Let's roll. 4, and that claims the fort. Look at that. That's lucky, but an excellent move. So we claim this fort. So put the army on. And again, like before, the army just has to enter the fort tile and claims it. And you can see our army, despite having a conflict here, pushed on, gathered forces, circled round and came from the north and retook the fort from the dark force. Okay, so just north of this is another one of the forts that we need to claim. And we've got to decide. I think we'll go from this hex here. Now the reason why is only 2 of our armies have been through there. So there's less chance of rolling one of those numbers than say if we went from this hex here, which has 3 other armies on. If we rolled a 5, 6 or 2, it would block a hex tile clockwise, and then you wouldn't be able to enter that, and that could be a problem. So we're going to go from this hex here and roll the die and see what happens. We get a 4, which takes us south. Okay. It's not ideal. It's not the worst thing that could have happened. We circle the 4s there. Now looking at this again, we'll try from this hex up here. 6, 1 or 2 will take us north and open up other possibilities of approaching this fort. And just to have a quick overview again, we've claimed the fort down in the south. We lost this fort in the central region. We claimed that fort there. We're 2-1 up. We try and claim this one. We need to claim 2 more forts. And we get a 4, which is this one here. Okay, so that means, because it's next to a different number, a dark force appears in that location. Let's roll from this. So that is a dark army appeared on that spot. And we will roll from here again and see what happens. We need a 6, 1 or 2. Not 5 or 3, preferably. It is a bit risky, but it's risky down here as well because of our armies and the dark forces are tracking us and trying to take us down. So from this top square, we get a 5, which is probably the worst number to roll, although 3 would have been bad as well. So 5, we move it around 1, and this hex is blocking our pathways. Basically, the army's fortified that zone, as we were talking about before. And we place the lines on the hex in order, because you would be drawing this, you'd quickly outline that hex, and it's very evident that you cannot go into that space. So I'm not going to roll from these hexes over here anymore. That rolling from there would be really risky. That zone's out of bounds. I'm going to go back over to this starting hex, 6, 1 or 2, to push us up to the north. If we roll any of these other numbers, it will block our pathway. Let's bear in mind that 3 is now a dark force. So if we roll out, this then becomes a dark force, this number 4. So on this particular tile, we need to roll a 6, 1 or 2 to bring the army up this way. And we roll a 6. Okay, so that takes us out of this corner. So we're going to roll from this tile. Bearing in mind that over this direction we have another fort. So pushing out in this direction isn't a bad thing. But of course we may end up going in this direction. And just a quick summary, we've got 3 dark armies out here, dark force armies. Remember, 25 is the maximum you can have out of those. Right, this tile here. 2, which takes us in this direction. I am going to roll from the new tile. There's low. In fact, I say that I nearly missed the 3s. Let's pair up the 3s. Probably the easiest thing to miss. But you have to, when you get numbers that match, you have to draw an army over them. 3. So this new one has got a 2 risk. It gives a new perspective on your strategy. So I'm going to go. I'm going to use the new one still, because you could get a dark army appear on this one. There's 3 numbers. There's 4 out of the 6 here. 4 and 6. So let's roll from there. We get a 1, which takes us north. Okay, now we're heading north, which is good, and we've got less chance of rolling a blocked space. We're 2 spaces away from the fort in this direction. We need 2 more forts. Let's roll the die and see what happens. Rolling from this one, this top one. And we get a 1, which is really unlucky. So rolled a double, and we need to obviously see we've got a 1 here already. So we put the blocked hex clockwise around, and the 1 will start at the 2. Blocked space in there. Now, as before, we cannot move into that space, and it reduces our odds. I'm still going to go from this top tile. Hopefully we get a 3 or a 4, which pushes us in this direction, and we can always go in that direction as well. But if we roll a 2, a dark army will appear on this space. 3 is exactly what we wanted. Get some lucky rolls in this. So 3 takes us to the west. So the 3 has the army, and the army has skirted around this blocked area and is now approaching the fort. We need a 5 or 6 to bring us into that side. Let's roll. And we get 3, which is really unlucky. So the 3 means, because it's already got a pair, that means our army's been tracked, and they now know they've blocked us at the next space. So we need to put 3 where the 5 is, because there's already a blocked tile here, so it carries on round clockwise, and you end up with this tile being blocked right next to the 4. See, we put the blocked hex in there. Now, what options do I have? Not that many at this stage. I could try and go south. I've got these 2 here that might lead round, but that's pretty risky, especially with the mountains coming out in this area here. I'm going to go from this northern tile again. I've got 3 numbers blocked off, which is not great. Dark armies may come from those blocked areas, and I've got a 6, a 1 and a 2, which will hopefully guide me to safety. So I'm going to roll from this one. And I get a 6, which is really lucky. So puts us in with a chance of taking the fort. Okay, so we're up right outside the fort. We've rolled a 6 and we're on this hex. We need a 2 now to claim this fort. We get a 1 or a 6. 1 gives us a dark army, and 6 gives us a blocked. 6 would be the worst one, because it will block this off and means that the dark forces have secured that zone and we cannot penetrate it. We get a 1. Not great. A dark army emerges. Dark force emerges from that hex there and is now much more of a threat, that space. So the dark army goes onto the 1. because it wasn't a 1, it didn't match, so that means there's the opportunity for the Dark Army to come forth. And we need to roll again for this hex. And we did 2 or 3, really. We get a 6, which is the worst number that we could roll. And that means, because the 6 is already matched up, that Dark Force has tracked our army, predicts where we're going to go, and blocks off that area. And so we lose the fort. Puts the lines over the hex, and you can see that that whole area there has been controlled by the Dark Forces, and we will colour in that grid just to show they have secured it. Army's been wiped out and we can no longer take that. But there's a fort over here that we need to have a look at. Can we take this fort? So we need to have a look at some of these other hexes, which is a lower risk. I think what we'll do is we'll try this one here. We need a 4 or 5 to take one of these hexes here. And in fact, there's only 2 of our armies in there, so there's less chance of being tracked. If it was, say, this hex here with 3 of our armies that could be tracked. So we'll try this one here. There's still Dark Forces that could be a risk, but we'll try roll a 4 or a 5. And we get a 6. That isn't good. That means that part of the, because this 6 here already exists, the army has tracked us and blocked off our path. We have to put the 6 up here, so it cycles around to this space here and becomes a 6. So put the lines drawing around that hex to signify that it's blocked. Now we have to have a look. With that particular one we rolled from, there's only a 5 now, which is free, which is pretty risky. This hex here could be the next one. So we've got 6 and a 1 and a 3 are safe, whereas 2, 4 and 5 will cause a blocked space. If we roll a 2, it'll be that one that's blocked. If we roll 4 or 5, it'll be this hex which is blocked. Let's roll and see what happens. And we get a 4, which is not good. So this hex here is going to be blocked because we rolled a 4. It cycles around clockwise. You put the 4 next to the 6. Place the lines around the hex, signifying that it's blocked. And we have to have a look again at the situation. How can we get through to the fort on this side? All these hexes here have things attached to them, which makes it more risky to roll from. But we have to try. If the land is blocked, the land is blocked. But we need to know. So I'm going to roll from this hex again. This one, need a 1 to go north, and a 3 should put me in here. Any others will cause problems. So let's try this one here. Get a 1. And we get a 1. That's amazing. Okay, so we're going to put the 1 in. The army battles through. So we circle the 1s, signifies our army has made a passageway through this blocked land. And north it pushes. Now we need a 4 to claim the fort and a 3 to claim this land next to it. If we get any of the others, we've got dark armies appearing and a blocked hex if we roll a 1, which I hope we don't. 5. Okay. So a dark army appears in this location here because the 5 is next to a 1. So that means it's not a match, it's not one of our armies, it's a dark army appearance. They've tracked us and are now coming in to try and attack. Right, you can see the dark army is there. Now, we're going to roll from this hex again. 5 again. That is not good. So what that means is this cycles around and attacks our army in the space and takes this army out. There you can see we've got the army placed over that army that's been defeated. But there's still people in this hex, part of your army. They could still push north if we roll a 3 or a 4. Let's see what happens. We roll a 6, so another dark army appears. So place that over the 6. You can see as we get nearer the end of the game, you've got to take more risks. More of their armies appear as you dwell in one spot. So now, this area here, we still need to roll a 3 or a 4. Can we do it? We roll a 2. Another dark army appears. So they're really swamping this area now. Really, you've got to think as well that this contributes to the overall total of dark armies, and that means that isn't a good thing. There you go, the army's in. So we've got this space again. We're going to try and roll and see if we can get a 3 or a 4. Army could still win this space. We get a 2. Okay, so what that means is we roll a 2. Okay, and that represents the fact there's a dark army there already. Now, ordinarily, the dark army would go and take one of your armies that's connected to that hex. Because there isn't one, what happens is it cycles around and blocks one of these hexes and puts a dark army coming out of that hex, which ultimately means that we'll have 5 dark armies here on this hex. So we're moving the blocked hex into place there. It's a pitched battle here. There's still hope. Most of our army has been destroyed, but with one last ditch effort, one last roll of the die, can we take the fort? We need to roll a 4. It's a 1 in 6 chance. It'd be pretty impressive if we can manage to do it. If we roll a 4, we take the fort. And we don't. We roll a 5, which means we lose this space. So the 5 is here. It cycles around. Another dark army appears. Was it worth the risk? Who knows? You could have gone around this way maybe, but we persevered with this particular square just to see how it would play out. Let's put the numbers in. So we put the last dark army in. Pitched battle. My army was totally wiped out as we tried to take the fort in this direction. You could argue if we'd looked over here maybe and gone up this way, it might have been a better chance. But in the heat of the moment, you do tend to just keep rolling and trying to claim these spaces. And that means that the top of the map is now out of bounds. Let me just colour that one in there. So that is now retained by the enemy. We're now fighting over the last fort. We're going to push towards this fort here. I have to take it, otherwise I lose. Because currently, if you look at the map, they've got 3 and we've got 2. So if they get one more, then they will win. So there's 7 forts on the map. Right, so we're going to try and push out in this other direction and see what happens. It's pretty risky because you can see there's quite a few armies around and our troops could be tracked. Let's try. We'll go from... Let's go from this one here. 6, 5 or 4 can push us out in this direction. And we get a 3. Okay, so you can see we have a 3 already circled with our army, and of course that means we block the clockwise hex and starting with the 3 next to the 4 there. Place the blocked hex on there. Okay, so we're now faced with that one being slightly more risky. There aren't that many good options down this side. I think we will try... Let's try this one here. The 2 is safe, although going in the wrong direction. 5 or 4. We want a 5 ideally. 4. A 4. Okay. Let's put that in down there. Okay, rolling from that same square here, this hex. Let's try it again. We have 3, 2 or 1. 3 preferably. We roll a 5. Okay. That is connected to 2. We can't place an army, but it's not a pair, so it's not our own army. A dark force appears. appears on that spot. It goes in there, and that contributes to the number so far, which is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 dark forces have appeared. 25 means you've lost as well as losing your forts. Let's do it from this one again. We get 3, which is exactly what we wanted. So 3 takes us into this area here. So this kind of represents the army heading south, encounters a dark force, it survives it or defeats it and moves it west into this space here. Now we want a 6 or 5 to push us west, parallel to the mountains, hopefully beyond the mountains. See what we roll. Roll a 2, which isn't good. That is 2 next to a 5, which gives us a dark force because they're not matching and it's not one of your own armies. Goes on there. We're going to roll from that tile again. Still 6 or 5 or 4. I mean, it's better than nothing. If we get a 3, it blocks that space down there. We get a 2, a dark force. Now the dark force has defeated that army coming across from that area there. Let's try and let's put that in now. That gets placed over the 3s down here. Army's defeated, but army still is in this zone. It can still push out beyond that army. Let's try and roll again. We need a 6 or 5. We get a 4, which takes us south. It gives us another option to move that way. Now we're up against it here. We need a 3, really, to take us past the mountains. Otherwise we get deflected south, and that's not where we want to be. If we roll a 6 or 1, go south. If we roll a 2, we go into the mountains, and that space is blocked off because the army is lost. And if we get 3, we head north. Now with this one here, we've got a 6 or 5. Takes us into one of these squares here. I'm rather inclined to do that, to be honest. So let's try on the 6 or 5. This square in the middle here. And we get a 2. So the dark force has spread there, and it is now going to take this army out here, the 4s, because it goes clockwise around until it can take an army. Move that into space there. I'm still inclined to roll a 6 or a 5 to try and push this side of the mountains. Let's give it another go. Roll a 4. The army is continuing to take out my forces. This is a 4. It's a dark force. That is not good. There's no other of my armies to take, so it takes the hex, blocks this hex here, the clockwise, and not only that, it places another dark army in, which adds to their total. So you drag. And of course you would draw the outline. So this doesn't look good. I'm not going to roll from here again. You could conceivably roll a 6. There's a low chance of doing that. So we're not going to risk getting another dark army out into this zone here. We've already added 4 more to the dark force army count, and we don't really want to bring that up any further. So what we'll do is try and push out from one of these other zones. We're going to click on this one here, 6 or 5, and we'll better expand to the west. 6 or 5. We get a 6 at last. We get a break on that side. So we put the 6 in to this one here. Place the 6, the army over the 6s there. And then we have 4, 3, 2, 1 will take us further in there. If we get a 5, it's a dark army. 6 again, that's bad luck. We'll block this square off down here. 3 pushes us in this direction, which is perfect. So we place the 3s down there. The army's pushed through, and it's heading for the fort. So rolling from this one here, there's only the 3's, only the bad number. We don't want to roll. We're kind of broken free of all this turmoil in the middle of the map. Right, so from this tile here, we get a 1, which pushes us north, which isn't ideal. The army's circled, and I'm gonna if we push, let's try from the new hex. So 2 or 3, 4 pushes us north. Okay. All right, we circle the army there, and now this one's adjacent to some other squares. There's more risks of the dark army appearing, so we will go back down to this square here. 6, 5 or 4 to push us in that direction. The 1 is not the tile we want, but there's a space here, so the 1 will cycle around and block this one next to the 2. Slot that in there like that. So, faced with the other option, let's try and push again from the same tile and roll from there. 6, 5 or 4. And we get a 6. Great. Put the 6s in there. We are closer now to the fort. Going to roll from that 1 that we just placed. 3, 2 would be great. Push us in that direction. And we roll a 6, which isn't great. Army's been tracked. Dark Force is going to block off this 1. Cycle around to clockwise and move the 6 to the 1. Place the hex, the outline hex there. Block off that hex now. I'm going to roll again from this one. There's 2, 3 or 4 now is the chance. Get a 6, dark army will appear. 2. That's probably exactly the one we want. Well, no, 3 would have been better because it wouldn't have had anything around it, but 2's alright. It's the direction we want to go. Place the army over the 2's. And now we have to look at this next hex. 1, 6, 5, 4 gives us a forward momentum. We get a 4. Okay, let's put that in. Right, the 4's gone in. So we've got 2 tiles now. This one down here has got less attached to it, so this is a better hex to roll from. 3 or 2 would be good. And we get a 5, and so a dark army appears on the 5 because it's next to a 4. The dark army goes into position there. And I'm inclined to roll from the same one. There's more safer numbers than that one above it. And we get a 1, which takes us south. Okay. We don't really want to be put off course too much. We don't want to be heading in this direction. We have to come back to some of these ones up here. In fact, I'm rather inclined to try from up here, 5 or 6 or 1. Definitely not a 2. Okay, so that's not good. The 2 cycles around. Its own army, it's been traced by the Dark Force, brings around to the next available hex, which is clear. And that space is unfortunately blocked right next to the fort. So that was unlucky. That was the risk you take. So let's roll from this one down here and see what happens. This lower one down here. We do 6 to take us up in that direction, or 5 potentially, but then you're near the mountains and they're dangerous. Let's try this. We did 6. And we get a 6, amazingly. Alright, let's put that in. So we're putting in the army around the 6s there. Circle back around now. Close to the fort. We have to take this fort. We need a 3-2 to push us in that direction. We're rolling from this one here. There's still, it's a risky business as the corridor narrows. A 3 or a 2. And we get a 5. It's not as bad as a 6. A dark army appears on that location. So that goes in there. Right, I'm going to roll from the same square again. We need a 3 or a 2. And we get the 5 again, which means that army has moved in and is now destroyed our army at 6. That army at 6 there has prevented the tile from being blocked. So it's a valiant effort. Put it in, it goes in over the 6 there. Going to roll from that space again, see what happens. We get a 4. Now that isn't good. So that represents a army there, the 2 4s together, because of the block. We don't have to draw it in because it's blocked, but because it is a pair, it cycles around clockwise and blocks off this one at the bottom here. So remove the blocked tile into space, into the space there. So we move the outline onto the hex, and that is blocked. We are in a very dangerous situation here. I'm going to roll from this hex again. We did a 3 or a 2 to push out into these zones here, and then maybe try and take the fort. Let's try again from this one here. We get a 6, which is probably, you know, that is the worst. Because the 6 carries around. We're going to block off this tile here. And that also has a dark army coming out of it now. So we need a 6 against that one. So not only was it blocked, the dark army comes out of it. So there's 3 now on that tile. Let's just count how many dark armies we've got on the board. 25 being the limit. Let's not forget that. And it's looking pretty cool. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Getting close to that 25 total. It won't matter if they retain this form, we can't take it. So we need to have a look at this area here. We've got this hex with a 6 and a 1, which is less risky than just rolling for the 3 on this hex here. Our options are narrowing. The dark army have blocked virtually this area. There's only one little path through that 3, and it's a very low chance of that happening. This one up here, 6 and a 1, better chance. Let's roll for that one. 6 and 1. 3. Okay, it's not going to block that path. It puts a dark army in here, and as you know, the number of dark armies is going up very quickly. But we'll put it in, and we'll roll from the same tile again after. Right, this tile here, 6 or 1. Can we do it? 2. That's not good. Okay, so the 2 here is the army's path. It's been tracked. They've blocked off our route into that next area. Okay, moving that blocked tile into place there. Now, there's a thin wedge here. We can push through on a 3, or we can try and go around past the mountains, which is a very difficult thing to do. Let's try from this one here. We need a 3. Be the biggest fluke ever if we get that one. Let's try it. If not, it will just be blocked off. Oh, 2. Okay. So this area here gets blocked off, and 2 cycles around next to the 3. Not only that, though, a dark army will come out of that as well, because it was rolled on a dark army. So just put the dark army on there, and you can see they've effectively, dark forces, have barricaded off this area. fortified it, and now we have one option. That's to go around and try and squeeze down from the north into this zone here. So we're going to have to try and roll on this hex here, I think. We'll try this hex into 3 or a 4. It's the best chance we've got. And I'm going to try that 3 or 4. If we can't get this fort, we can't claim enough forts to defend and claim back the land from the Dark Force. So let's try this one here. Either 3 or 4. Oh, we got 3. Okay, cool. So we move into this zone here. Just move the army into place here. Right, now, is the luck with us? This hex here, this one in the middle, I'm going to roll from that. And do 6 to take us into that zone, or 1 would be so bad. If we get a 3, block off our path, and that is game over. The Dark Forces have infiltrated the lands and claim it. So we don't roll 3. We're rolling from this one here. This is the end, potentially. Or we can make this most amazing move. 6, and then round the back there. We get a 6! Unbelievable. Right, so let's put the 6 in here. There's still work to be done. The army is fighting on. Okay, place the army there over the 6s. It's pushed on up. Now, very dangerous territory here. We've got mountains in the north. We've got 3 or 4. The army gets pushed into the mountains and is lost. We get a 6. A dark army appears. 1, a dark army appears. 5, we go back on ourselves. 2 is the way forward. Can we do it? Let's have a look. 2. 6. That is the worst one. Our army has been tracked by the Dark Forces. They see that we're trying to push north and they block our path. Let's put it in and assess the situation. Okay, so I put it in, and you can see, looking at it here, that this whole side now is blocked off. We can't go through the mountains. All passages have been blocked off. Armies have appeared to stop us, and they've tracked our forces, which means we can't claim that fort over this side, and that therefore becomes a Dark Force fort, and they retain it. Which means that they have claimed, if we look at the overall map, they have claimed 4 forts around the board. We claimed 2 and there's 1 left, but even if we claim that one, it would not be enough to reinstate our lands. If we look at the number of Dark Forces as well, they had 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. They were pretty close to getting 25 armies into the land, which would have overwhelmed us. So they really well to claim 2 forts. And this game is a difficult game, there's no doubt about it. Basically ended up with some mighty battles and some mighty conflicts in this, but they defeated us. So that is Dark Force Incursion. That's my first playthrough on this channel. I'm going to do some more. Obviously, it's quite fiddly having to place the images down into the map. But you get the idea. You will be drawing these onto the map, and therefore it's quicker. So the play time for this video is a bit deceptive. It will take you less time to play it than what this video shows. And also, I'm explaining the rules as well. So if you've got any questions, add them in the comments section down below. And if you like this video, click the thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed already, go ahead. Don't forget, you can download this for free. It's a free print and play, roll and write game that you can access and have fun with, especially in these strange times that we're living in at the moment, guys. Thanks for watching, and I will be back with you very soon.